Hello and welcome to the next video in this tutorial series, and in this video we will focus on how to play and how to counter Aeon. If you play Aeon the first time, especially on Tech 1, you will experience some huge problem, and that's mainly because Aeon Tech 1 tanks have less HP and less firepower than the other tanks. So if they just met the other tanks, they get totally owned. But as you maybe just saw, the Aeon tanks start firing earlier than the other tanks, so they have more range. So the most important thing on Aeon Tech 1 is that you move away from the enemy tanks, that you kite with your tanks. So if these tanks move on me, I wait until they get in range, and then I instantly move back. So I can shoot the tanks, but they cannot shoot me. And if they stay, or if they move away again, I follow them. So you can basically kill all the tanks without taking any damage if you're good with it. And this makes Aeon Tech 1 land basically the strongest Tech 1 land, and it's very hard to do anything against the Tech 1 land of Aeon. At least with your own Tech 1 land units. So the first and maybe most obvious counter is to get gun on your commander, because if you get gun on your commander you have even more range than the Auroras, and you can either one hit the Auroras or two hit them with a very high fire rate. You double your DPS output with the gun upgrade of most factions. And as you see, you can just outrange them and kill them one by one. However, you should always think about that your commander is not invulnerable, of course. If they move in, they are faster than your commander. They will kill it in more or less the same numbers than strikers or other tanks would do it. So always be aware that your commander will take damage. The second possibility is going Tech 2 land. If you're a Seraphim, for example, you have these Tech 2 bots. They have actually more or less the same range than the Auroras. So you can either try to kite them, or you can just try to run in because you have these superior DPS and superior HP. And there is absolutely nothing that these paper Auroras could do about it. So let's just kill it. And if you're Cybran or UEF, you have another possibility that's actually better than the possibility with just running in with Tech 2 units. It's these range bots. For the UEF it's the Mongoose, and for Cybran it's the Hoplite. And they can actually outrange the Auroras and kill them more or less like you could have done it with your commander, with the cool thing that they are actually faster than the Auroras. So you really can kite them. And there is nothing Auroras could do against this. And these range bots, the cool thing about it is that the Aeon do not have anything to counter it. They can counter it with Tech 2 or Tech 1 air, but they can't counter it with land units because the Auroras are too weak, and the Tech 2 units of the Aeon just have not enough range to compete to the Mongoose. So if you have the possibility to go Tech 2 and get these Tech 2 bots, then you should do it because you're in a really good shape then. The last and maybe the not most obvious thing is that you can get Tech 1 air. The cool thing about Tech 1 air and Auroras is that because of the Auroras have only 150 HP, they get one hitted by any Tech 1 bomber. So if you able to attack a close formation of Auroras with your bomber, you can often destroy like 9 tanks in one pass, and that's really worth it even if your bomber dies. And if you're then able to drop a double bomb, your enemy is totally fucked. And this is mainly the reason why air is way more important for Aeon than it is for other factions. Because if you have these Tech 1 bomber spam above your Auroras, there's really nothing you can do about it. No anti-air will help you because the bombers just make one pass, kill 9 Auroras and then die. But it's already worth it. And also you need the air to counter these Tech 2 bots if your enemy bolts some. Because, like I said, you can't do anything on land against it. Tech 2 bots only have 650 HP, so if you have like 3 bombers, they will die to it. The second part of this video, I will go over the units of the Aeon and give a few tips how to use it and what to do against it. So the other Tech 1 land units are not so different from the ones of the other factions. The anti-air with more or less the same DPS as all factions. You have the Flare, that's the Tech 1 lab, and it also behaves more or less like a McMarine. The RT is a bit different from the other factions because it doesn't have this huge splash and it's very precise, but that makes it more or less most efficient against PDs and buildings, but not so efficient against units. So you shouldn't build that much RTs as Aeon, only like 1 or 2 in your army, so you can take out point defenses and later have huge DPS on buildings, but not like with the other factions that you build RTs to harass your opponent's army. That's totally useless with Aeon. And on Tech 2 we have the Tech 2 mobile missile launcher. It's more or less the same like the other missile launchers. Then we have the flag. You have to know that the Aeon flag is way weaker than the other mobile flags. It does way less DPS, but of course it's worth it because it can hover, so you can protect your cruisers and other ships on the water from gunship attacks and also from torpedo bomber attacks. Torpedo bomber cannot attack this unit because it hovers. Then we go on to the Blaze. The Blaze is actually not a very good Tech 2 unit. It does a constant stream of shots, but its DPS are quite low and also it doesn't have much of HP. So you can build these hover tanks in order to attack somewhere fast and with less units, but I'm actually not sure what they are good for, so under normal circumstances I wouldn't build them. And the last thing is the Obsidian. It's the strongest Tech 2 tank, but the main issue is that it fires very slow, so it's quite ineffective against Tech 1 units, but of course it's very effective against Tech 2 units. Like I said before, you can have that problem if your opponent builds range bots and the Obsidian is not very fast. So if your enemy pays attention and runs away from your Obsidian, you have absolutely no chance against the range bot with that unit. But of course, if you get in range, the Obsidian is a total ownage against the range bots. Like you see, they get 2-hitted. And the last Tech 2 unit they have is a mobile shield. It's more or less like the UEF mobile shield, with the only exception that it can actually hover too, so it's very effective to protect your cruisers and other ships from torpedo bomber attacks or gunship attacks. And of course you can also use it on land. Be aware that if you have many shields at one point, these shields will go down fast because of the shield nerf, that if one shield gets hit, all shields that overlap with each other get damaged too. So Tech 2 land and Aeon is actually not very special. So let's move on to Tech 3. We have the mobile artillery on Tech 3 like every other faction too. It's a bit different because it does part of the damage after the actual shot, so in this field damage is still done. Then we have the sniper bot of the Aeon. I think it's worse than the sniper bot of Seraphim. It fires one shot over a huge distance and deals quite some damage, but the problem is that it takes very long to fire again. I think it's like 5 seconds or something. So the actual DPS output is quite low. You can use this for defense against Perseus or something. So if you have like 10 of them, it's quite effective to use them as a defense, but if you only have one, I don't think there is a huge deal in using them. Then we have the special unit on Tech 3 for the Aeon. It's the Shield Disruptor. Unfortunately, the Shield Disruptor is totally crap, so don't use it. And the last unit of the Aeon is the Harbinger. It's a fast Tech 3 assault bot. It has pros and cons. So the big pro is that it's better and it will win a 1v1 against any other Tech 3 bot like the Loyalist, the Titan, or the O2M for the Seraphim. But Aeon do not have a heavy Tech 3 bot, so Harbinger will lose against Percival's and of course, bricks too. So you basically trade speed against firepower. So let's have a look at the experimental units of the Aeon. At first we have the Galactic Colossus. So I think it's the best direct fire unit, at least from the DPS and health, so it will win against any other direct fire XP units. And it's basically the exchange for not having a heavy tech free bot. So if you are under heavy fire from Percival's and bricks, you shouldn't bolt Harbingers anymore, you should go for a Galactic Colossus. Mainly because the Galactic Colossus has an ability that allows him to pull one unit and destroy it immediately, undepending on its health. This doesn't work with experimental units and commanders, of course. The second unit I can spawn here, unfortunately I didn't pick a map with water, is an experimental battleship. It acts more or less like a normal battleship, except it has torpedoes and it's able to dive, but it's nothing special. You can use it on naval maps to attack bases, but you shouldn't use it against other ships, I guess. The next experimental unit, the air experimental unit of the Aeon, is the SAR. SAR is a very strong experimental unit. It fires a beam directly beneath it, and this beam has a huge DPS and also some splash. The SAR has also a big air defense, but of course it gets outtaken by ASF. The cool thing is also that you can produce, while you're standing still, you can produce planes inside the SAR. And also you can planes, of course, hide inside the SAR, and if somebody tries to attack it, you can leave the planes out and defend your SAR. A cool thing to know about the SAR is that it has a big air crash damage. So even if your SAR gets taken out, if you manage to fly above the enemy base and it gets taken out there, it's pretty much like a frisbee falling into the enemy base. It's often called flying donut or something, and it will rape everything. I think it's 10,000 damage or something. Of course the enemy has wreck inside its base then, so you should be careful with doing this, of course. The last experimental unit of the Aeon is the resources generator, the Paragon. I've already talked about this in the first tutorial, so it basically generates an unlimited amount of mass and energy. And if it dies, don't let it die. So I won't cover the navy of Aeon here, because it's more or less the same like the other navies in my opinion, except that the submarine don't has an anti-ground gun. But let's have a look at the air units of Aeon. So on Tech 1 we have the normal Tech 1 Air Scout and the normal Interceptor. The bomber from Aeon is a bit different from the other bombers. At first it doesn't deal that much damage, it only deals 150, while the other bombers deal between 250 and 300. But the cool thing is that if a bomb hits a unit, it gets actually stunned for some seconds. This is longer for Tech 1 units, so it's quite helpful if you're in a huge fight and this bomber drops a bomb and stuns like 10 units or something. That will give you a huge advantage. Also, it's obviously possible to triple bomb or even quadra bomb with this bomber. I can do that, but you can try it. Then we have the Tech 1 transport. It's also the same like the other Tech 1 transports. So the interesting things come on Tech 2. We have, instead of the normal fighter bomber that can attack air and ground targets, we have the Swiftwind, which is only an anti-air fighter, but it's more efficient than the other Tech 2 fighters. So if you have 10 Swiftwinds against, I think it's 8 or 7 fighters mass-wise, the Swiftwinds will definitely win. And if you win, you can use this. This is the Mercy. It's basically a rocket. It's a death weapon. That means if you attack something, The Mercy will fly to it and then destroys itself and kills that unit. It would do 2500 damage, and it's maybe... What the... Oh. So if you don't put it on hold fire, and something really weird happening then. If you don't put it on hold fire, it will deal 2500 damage to the unit it gets. What the... To the unit it gets targeted. So don't put it on hold fire. No idea why you should do that anyway. The third thing you have is gunship. Yeah, it's the same like all gunships. And of course you have a Tech 2 transport. The Tech 2 transport of the Aeon cannot fire ground target, but it has a pretty good anti-air. More or less like the Swift Wind. So back to the Mercy. This won't happen if you don't set it to hold fire. And don't let your air units land. Mercies are basically the best way to snipe enemy commanders. If you have like 5 or 6 Mercies, it's when they all hit the commander, they are pretty much dead. But Mercies only have 10 hit points, so if there is any anti-air, the Mercies will get shut down. You can try to send Tech 1 Air Scouts in to pull the fire off them, but I'm not sure how efficient this is. It can work, but it mostly won't work. Also, you should be aware that the Tech 2 flag, the shots are too slow to kill the Mercies, so they will actually go in this untargetable mode before the Tech 2 flag hits them. So if you want to defend against Mercies, you should build Tech 1 anti-air and not Tech 2 anti-air. Tech 3 anti-air of course works too. So let's move on to Tech 3. We have the normal Strat Bomber, which deals a bit more damage but has slightly less AoE. We have the Seer Tech 3 Air Scout and the whatever Tech 3 Interceptor of course. And then we have this, it's a Tech 3 Torpedo Bomber. People are discussing how good this Tech 3 Torpedo Bomber is. It's faster than Tech 2 Torpedo Bomber and of course it has more HP, but it costs a lot more, so it can one-hit Tech 2 cruisers. That's maybe the big bonus. Really, I'm not sure if you should use it, so I think Tech 2 bombers more or less do the same. Tech 2 torpedo bombers, of course. The really cool thing of Aeon on Tech 3 Air is the Restorer. Maybe some of you still remember the 3599 thing that Restorers were totally overpowered. This is not anymore, but there is still a very good unit because they can attack ground targets very efficient, and at the same time they can defend against air units very good. So if you don't know what to build, these units are normally a good idea. So as general tips, it's very important for Aeon or against Aeon to keep air control somehow, because of the Mercies, because of the Tech 2 range bots, and because of everything basically. So you should focus a lot more on air to not get sniped by Mercies and not lose to the Tech 1 Auroras. And you should use the fact that Aeon do not have a heavy attack bot, so if you see that an Aeon player goes Tech 3, don't even build Titans, build a few Tech 2 tanks or even only Tech 1 tanks to kill the other Tech 1 stuff, and then only build Percies and Bricks to kill the Harbingers. And if you see Restorers, don't panic, build ASF. ASF will own Restorers in numbers. And if you see Sniper bots, it's maybe a good idea to just go some Tech 1 bombers and snipe them, because Sniper bots only 450 HP, even less than the Tech 2 range bots, so like I said, I'm not sure if you should build them at all. So that's it for today. If you want to know more about Aeon or more about other factions, you should leave a comment, and see you guys later.